You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that unbeaten up-and-comer from Kazakhstan, in both the super flyweight and bantamweight divisions, Balaussa Muzdiman has set her sights on newly crowned undisputed champion Shernika Johnson, or sort of undisputed, but she doesn't have the Ring Magazine title and she's not lineal. That's still Dina Thorsland. In any event, Balaussa Muzdiman, she posted this image to her Instagram account comparing herself to Shernika Johnson, sporting a professional record of 9 wins with no losses and no draws, 7 knockouts. I've seen Balaussa, and she's actually very good, even if her quality of competition isn't, and I guess she's ready to fight for some of the major titles, the more recognizable ones. As there are any number of lesser-known alphabet titles out there, like the WBF and the UBO, but you won't get anywhere fighting for those. Seems she wants to challenge Shernika for the Major Four. Shernika Johnson, who sports a professional record of 18 wins with 2 losses and no draws, 8 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 20 professional bouts, currently in possession of all the alphabet titles at 118, but as stated, she's not actually lineal champion, and she doesn't hold the Ring Magazine title. Last in action in July of this year, opposite the Ring then-champion Shurita Metcalf, forced a referee stoppage in the 9th round of a contest scheduled for 10. That was her second fight of this year. Her first was the rematch with Nina Hughes, who she also stopped. Balaussa Muzdiman of Kazakhstan wants what she's got. Balaussa has been busy this year. She fought once in April, again in June, then again last month. 3 times. Kind of schedule that she's keeping. I wouldn't be surprised if she fights for a 4th time in what remains of this year. She's managed to stop 5 of her last 6 opponents. Fine. Now she wants to bring the heat, bring the pressure to Shernika Johnson. Balaussa Muzdiman is not ranked by the World Boxing Council, and she's not ranked by the WBO, but she does come in at number 8 via the IBF. She does rank in at number 2 via the WBA. Hypothetically speaking, if she can land a fight with America's own Brittany Sims, she can usurp that number 1 spot to supplant her and bring herself closer to a Shernika Johnson fight. So as far as the sanctioning bodies go, Balaussa's not actually that far off from landing a Shernika Johnson fight, though is she actually ready? The ranks might say one thing, but her level of experience says another. She's talented, and you can see that. You can see that she's a well-schooled fighter in terms of judging the distance and her variety of punches, her footwork, her instincts, going in for the kill, knowing when she's got her woman hurt. But because so few of the fighters that Balaussa Muzdiman have been up to scratch and able to fight back, that's what begs the question as to whether or not she's ready for somebody like Shernika Johnson, who's been a champion at 2 weights and been in there with some of the best fighters anywhere at 118 to 122. I would like to see Balaussa Muzdiman fight a Brittany Sims, a Gabriella Bouvier, a shotgun Shannon O'Connell, a former champion in Nina Hughes. I would like to see Balaussa Muzdiman in there with some of the more familiar faces and familiar fighters at 118 before she challenges Shernika Johnson. Stands to reason. Though it's good to see she understands the assignment, that she knows she's got to start fighting for those more recognizable titles. Never mind titles like the WBF or the IBO, you've got to target one of the Major Four titles. That's how you will achieve notoriety and get the kind of fights that you want to have. It's a very convenient situation at 118 that one fighter is in possession of all 4 alphabet titles, so you only really need to go up one route to fight for them all. We'll see if Balaussa Muzdiman can secure a mandatory position to challenge Shernika Johnson for what she's got. In men's junior middleweight news, former champion Keith Thurman before Sebastian Fundora title fight, I'm back where I belong, LA. Keith Thurman has always talked the talk and walked the walk. But after fighting just twice in the last 6 years, the proclamations from one time just don't ring the same as they once used to. At 36 years old, Thurman, 31-1 with 23 knockouts, is seeking an Indian summer when he takes on WBC junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora, 23-1 with 1 draw and 15 knockouts, on October 25th, later on this month, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, to headline a PBC on Prime video pay-per-view card. There is still mounting skepticism as to whether or not he will actually make it there. This is what the sport is all about. You put Thurman's name next to anybody, and I guarantee you, it's going to be a fight you won't want to miss. Thurman said in a recent press conference, "I'm about to conquer Mount Everest himself. They call him the Towering Inferno, but I've been in the fire. This is what I live for right here. This is the top of the sport." Once I get the WBC title, people won't have a reason to say no to a Keith Thurman fight. I've been waiting through the setbacks with the truly great champions. You can't stop them from becoming champion once again. Who's been saying no to a Keith Thurman fight? I don't know. The guy acts like he's being avoided. Who at junior middleweight has been avoiding Keith Thurman? After beating Robert Guerrero, Luis Collazo, Sean Porter, and Danny Garcia in a 24-month stretch from 2015 to 2017 to become a unified welterweight champion along the way, Thurman was hit with a rash of injuries and inactivity, fighting just 4 times since then. His only loss is against Manny Pacquiao back in July of 2019, sandwiched in between decision victories against Josecito Lopez and Mario Barrios. Thurman made his junior middleweight debut in March with a third-round stoppage of Jock Jarvis. It's quite a leap of faith. From fighting Brock Jarvis, who's fought as low as 135 and got stopped at 140 by Liam Botto, to fighting somebody like Sebastian Fundora, who's the exact opposite, all in his prime and towering over you. It's quite the leap of faith, and there's still a lot of skepticism as to whether or not Keith Thurman will make it there, because there's still plenty of time in between now and the 25th for him to become injured. Lest we forget, Keith Thurman has been one of the most injury-prone fighters in boxing in the last 5 or 6 years. Longer than that. Sebastian Fundora is a different kind of beast, and Thurman knows it. This is going to be an action-packed fight, he said. This is going to be a beautiful opportunity to step up. You have to see it to believe it, and I truly believe it's going to be timber on October 25th. Everything that's happened in the past is water under the bridge. All you can do today is put your best foot forward. I've been through so much throughout my career, but here I am, right here, right now, back where I belong. He belongs at 154? Well, at least momentarily, since he can't make 147. I guess you can call me the OG, or whatever you want, but I'm here today because of the love I have in my heart for boxing. I love making people love boxing. That's what it's all about. That's what big fights are all about. Hard to say how much Keith Thurman loves boxing when he's only boxed about 2 times in the last 4 years. He says he loves boxing. Okay. We'll see how much he loves it on the night, if he actually makes it there. And I just thought to myself, even in a fairy tale scenario where Keith has the fight and wins the fight, things don't get easier after that for Keith Thurman. Not based on who the other belt holders at 154 are. You're going to have Bakram Murtazaliev hot on your trail if you beat Sebastian, and Abbas Baru, and Xander Zayas, and everybody in between. Israel Madrimov, Charles Conwell. They're all going to come after Keith because to them, Keith would appear low-hanging fruit. And that's in a fairy tale scenario where Keith actually wins. To make matters worse, while the junior middleweight division is arguably one of the deepest divisions in all of boxing, what it doesn't have a whole lot of are big-name fights and big money fights. There are fights that pay more than others, but there are no super fights there. You look at Keith Thurman, who's in his mid-30s now, 36 going on 37 years old, and the situation would have grown desperate if he actually does fight Sebastian Fundora, because this guy has always been very careful about who he goes after. You notice that he didn't go after Kell Brook when they were at the same weight and they were both champions, the way he went after Paulie Malignaggi, the way he went after Danny Garcia. You'll notice that he was on the same side as Errol Spence
4 years. Never fought him either.
Keith Thurman has always been a picky eater, very selective about who he goes after, so that if now he's actually going after Sebastian, that's gotta be out of desperation. That's gotta be because the guy's run out of money and he doesn't have a choice but to fight.
Why am I so sure the guy might have ran out of money? He only fought 2 times in the last 4 years.
I'll tell you that unifying titles with either Abbas Baru or Bakram Murtazaliev, those are great fights for the hardcores, but they ain't gonna pay Keith Thurman but so much. I think Keith Thurman would likely make more money defending his belt against either Jaron Ennis or Conor Benn, both of which are with Matchroom.
Yeah, you can sell Boots Ennis versus Keith Thurman for the WBC title, and in the UK, you can definitely sell Keith Thurman versus Conor Benn, irrespective of what happens in the Benn versus Eubank rematch. That is a fight that you can sell over there, and those are fights that would get Keith Thurman more money than the unification matches would.
And that's in a fairy tale scenario where Keith Thurman actually fights Sebastian and beats Sebastian to become a 2-weight world champion. That's in a fairy tale scenario, except that I don't believe in fairy tales. And if Keith Thurman actually does fight this guy at the end of the month, I don't think he's going to win. I think he's going to get stopped. I think he's going to get knocked out. If you remember Keith Thurman in his prime and at his best, he's a somewhat unconventional fighter, not textbook. Likes to move around, likes to beat those feet, and his best punches are counter hooks.
He was always a very athletic fighter, and on the wings of his athleticism, that's what got him to 2 alphabet titles in the welterweight division, but this is junior middle, and the guys are a lot bigger, they punch a lot harder, to where if you try to shake and bake Sebastian from the outside, you're a sitting duck. He's so tall and so long, he doesn't need to be close to you to touch you with the jab, to touch you with the cross or the straight.
He's got an 80-inch wingspan to Keith Thurman's 69 inches. And it really doesn't help that Sebastian Fundora has been working on his boxing, working on his jab, working on his range control, to where if you try to fight him from the outside, he can pick you off long distance and make himself a difficult target to get to. Keith Thurman's best bet is to crowd Sebastian, crowd him on the inside,
crash the pocket, and even that's not guaranteed success because Sebastian likes banging in the phone booth. He likes fighting on the inside. I just don't see Keith Thurman winning this thing. I don't.
And I don't see this pay-per-view doing well at the box office either. Keith Thurman is a has-been. Never mind what he says on a podium, what he says on the mic.
His best days are behind him, and he was never a big box office draw. Sebastian Fundora, he's not one either. Even though he's in his prime, and he's a champion, he's not a big box office draw either. So I don't expect this fight to do big numbers.
Now, we might still get a highlight reel knockout out of this thing, but in terms of big numbers, I just don't see it. If Keith makes it there at the end of the month, I have Sebastian Fundora beating him, and I have Sebastian Fundora stopping him. That's the way I think it plays out. I think this is too high a mountain to climb for a sparsely active fighter in his mid-30s whose best days are clearly behind him. I've got Sebastian.
Elsewhere in the junior middleweight division this weekend, Jaron Ennis expects to be stronger, sharper, mentally entering his junior middleweight debut. Jaron Ennis feels much different as he winds down camp for his fight with Lima than he did 6 months ago. Dropping down to welter at 147 became more problematic for the former unified champion that he led on at that time. You wouldn't have known it, by the way, Ennis dominated a Montestanionis, but the gifted fighter nicknamed Boots knew he'd have to move up the junior middle for his following fight.
Ennis was a welterweight for the first 9 years of his career. Becoming undisputed champion in that division still appealed to him, but he couldn't wait. Ennis 28 announced in June that he would relinquish his Ring Magazine, IBF, and WBA welterweight titles to compete at 154. He is thankful that he ultimately listened to his body as his junior middleweight debut approaches this Saturday.
Matchroom is doing 2 shows this Saturday. One in the afternoon featuring Dave Allen and Arslanbek Makhmudov, and capping off the night with Boots' junior middleweight debut.
Camp has definitely gone way better, Ennis told The Ring. I've got that extra 7 pounds, so I feel great. A fresher Ennis expects his physical condition to help him produce another dominant performance against Angola's Lima this October 11th. DAZN will stream their 12-round WBA interim title fight as a main event from the Xfinity Mobile Arena in Philly, where the NBA's Sixers and NHL's Flyers play their home games. Me moving up and being at 154 is definitely better, Ennis said. I feel like I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna feel stronger, I'll be faster, I'll be sharper, my IQ will be better, everything is gonna be on point. The ambidextrous Ennis, 34-0 with 30 KOs and 1 no contest, was on point in the biggest fight of his career against Stanionis. He dropped the 2016 Olympian with successive left uppercuts in the 6th round in a bout between unbeaten champions, April 12th in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Lithuania's Stanionis, 16-1 with 9 knockouts and 1 no contest, who went down for the first time as an amateur and a pro, was behind 60-53 on all 3 judges' scorecards when he declined to answer the bell to start the 7th round. Making welterweight for the final time proved to be more difficult for Ennis, though, than the fight itself. I don't know how I did it, but I just did it, he said. I'm a professional, and I did what I had to do to make the weight, but now I don't have to suck myself down 7 more pounds. Ennis declined to discuss a potential showdown with Virgil Ortiz or any other future fights at junior middle. Nonetheless, if he beats Lima and Ortiz defeats Erickson Lubin on November 8th in Fort Worth, Texas, DAZN's decision makers and Eddie Hearn, whose company Matchroom Boxing promotes Ennis, are expected to push for a fight to take place in early 2026. DraftKings lists Ennis as an unsightly 25-1 favorite to overwhelm Lima, who's won 4 straight fights since he lost a 10-round decision to Ireland's Aaron McKenna in June of 2023, 2 years ago. Uisma Lima is said to be an aggressive customer, a come-forward customer, the kind of guy that Jaron Ennis normally looks good against. Think Roman Villa. Think Eimantas Stanionis. These are the kind of guys make Ennis look good. So stylistically, Uisma Lima should beat up Jaron Ennis' alley. It's physically.
That's where there are still question marks. Jaron Ennis was a rather big welterweight, bigger than most other welterweights, but at junior middle, he's not so big.
Defense ain't so great either. He gets hit. So what happens if he's taking punches and he's taking punishment from junior middles? We'll see how that chin holds up. They're talking about a Virgil Ortiz fight for early next year. That's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna be Virgil. We may see Boots Ennis back in the ring shortly after this weekend's fight, but it won't be against that guy. I think it'll be against the Boss Baru, since news broke earlier today that Jaron Ennis' fight has been upgraded from an eliminator to being an interim title fight for the WBA interim title. Further indication that Jaron Ennis is targeting a Boss Baru, newly crowned WBA champion.
Not against that fight. The sooner they can get Boots Ennis to a title at junior middle, the better. And a Boss Baru, stylistically, that's yet another guy that's right up Boots' alley. A Boss Baru is a mid-range to inside pressure fighter, an aggressive one. Aggressive guys are the guys that make Boots look good.
Boots is a boxer puncher.
So if he beats Lima and beats a Boss Baru, that's a good run of fights, and that's a good start to Boots' junior middleweight campaign.
See how he does.